I'm a absolute HubSpot geek. So this is really quite an honor for me, and I don't say that lightly because to me, Kyle, you are the face of HubSpot. And the reason I'm saying that is about more than 5 years ago now, I worked for a startup in IT, and they had the ambition to merge sales and marketing efforts
Mm,
more than they were at the time. We were using Pipedrive,
yeah.
and me being in sales, I was very happy with Pipedrive, even all the functionalities that work well. So I was a bit skeptical to hear about this new system that we were going to use, HubSpot. What is it?
Yeah.
But very quickly, I learned how powerful it is and how it's so much more. Well, now it's kind of circling back to becoming or identifying as a CRM, I should say. But
Yeah.
back then, it was also kind of the whole growth suite, and it still has a lot
Yeah.
of that functionality, of course. So I quickly learned about how it can really merge those pieces of data into one source of truth. And I got to learn so much through the HubSpot Academy, of which you have been and still are a presenter on
Yeah.
all of those videos. The video courses are really amazing. I recommend them to everybody, whatever your skill level is, really. But I was still relatively junior, and it really propelled my career in so many positive ways. I could have a whole monologue about that, but enough about me. Could you tell us a bit more about yourself and your kind of professional background?
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, right now I'm at HubSpot Academy, and I teach sales related things. So HubSpot Academy is HubSpot's kind of educational branch, and my main heading, my main job is to teach people how to use HubSpot's sales tools, so the CRM and the related functionality. But by extension, I teach a lot of just kind of entry level sales courses. A lot of HubSpot's customers are small businesses or startups or mid-sized businesses kind of trying to figure out how to grow. We love helping companies grow. And so a big part of that is not just giving them the tools, but the strategies that'll help them succeed. So that's my job, which is a job I didn't know existed before I had it, which is pretty awesome. My journey here was a kind of a winding road. When I graduated from college, I got a job doing inside sales for a tech startup, and they'd been around for a couple of years, but they were just finally getting an inside sales team created. Before that, it had all been field sales, and so the team was new and just kind of trying to figure it out, and it was awful. It was not a good experience. We had this in-house CRM our engineering team had built that had very minimal functionality, and the list of people I was calling had just been scraped from the internet. And I would call folks and quickly find out that there was no reason I should have been talking to that particular person. They were not in the industry we were targeting. They were not a decision maker. Sometimes they weren't even an employee at the company I thought they were an employee of. And it was just bad all the way through. And my day today was just making dozens and dozens of phone calls every day, leaving voicemails, harassing people. And it didn't feel good. I didn't like it. But I thought it was something wrong with me. I thought I was just bad at sales, right? Because there were other people that seemed to be succeeding and I was not. And so I made a move. I went over to more the customer success side of things, and I was much happier there. I found I really enjoyed, rather than trying to convince people to buy something, try to help them be happy with the thing they bought. And so I stayed at that company for a couple of years, but my ambition was always to be a professor. I wanted to be a university professor. And so after a few years, I left that company, went to grad school. That's what brought me here to Boston. But after 2 or 3 years of being in that fast-paced tech startup space where it's really adaptable and everybody does a little bit of everything, to go to higher education where everything was so rigid and hierarchical and you have to ask permission to do research, and I didn't like it as much as I thought I would. So I instead of going on to a PhD, I finished my master's degree and just left academia. But my wife and I had fallen in love with Boston. We wanted to stay. I wanted to get back into tech. And so I looked at the tech companies in Boston, quickly became obsessed with HubSpot, and was lucky enough to get hired onto the support team here. This was 2015. We had just launched our CRM less than a year before. And I was on the team that was supporting the brand new CRM and the few customers that were using it. And at that time, we had a separate engineering team, separate sales team, separate support team for just the CRM piece. But after I'd been at the company almost a year, upper management was like, this doesn't make any sense. We've got to have one support team that supports everything and one sales team that sells everything. And HubSpot Academy is going to teach people how to use the CRM now. And the people on the HubSpot Academy team were like, what? we don't know how to do that. So they asked my manager, is there anyone on your team that you think can teach this stuff? And he's like, well, Kyle wanted to be a professor. Maybe he would be into it. And for me, it was just this moment of like, I love HubSpot and I always wanted to be a teacher, but I wanted to stay in tech. And now like I get everything. Wow. I get everything I ever wanted, right? And wow. So I started teaching CRM. And it became clear we needed some sales education too. And my whole perspective was, I can't teach sales. I was really bad at it. But we had Mark Roberge here at HubSpot at the time, who's done a lot of great thought leadership in sales. And I quickly found that as I talked to HubSpot customers and partners, I could share with them my experience. Hey, this was miserable. Why was it miserable? How can we make sales reps not miserable? And the pattern started coming together of like, oh, if you actually research the people you're talking to, if you put some effort into it, if you're not just calling down a list of names, not only is it more enjoyable for you as a salesperson, you don't have to feel slimy, but it's better for the customer too, right? Now you're talking to people you can actually help, and it doesn't feel like you're trying to force them to do something they don't want to do. You're helping them achieve their goals. You're helping them overcome their challenges. And that is just a much better place for everyone to be. And so I've become sort of this crusader trying to change the way we do sales, not just so we can stop having these like awful old school sales conversations where we're trying to convince people to buy something they don't want, which is horrible for everyone, but also for the sake of the salesperson. I have so much empathy for that frontline salesperson who has to pick up the phone and make calls and stuff. Can we make their life better? Can we give them a job that they can feel good about? And I think we're doing that. And so
for sure,
that's
absolutely
how I got to be here.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And I'm also curious about how you now reflect on your time as a frontline seller back then, before you had HubSpot, and the knowledge that you have now. Because to me, just like you don't go into a football game without wearing the right boots and all that, you're going to be at a disadvantage. It's not just your efforts or even your conversational skills that make or break your success in a sales profession. The prep work, the lead generation, the quality of those leads matters, right? The tools you use matter, especially if you're in a competitive environment. You need to find anything you can to get an edge. And it sounds like to me, from what you're expressing about your experience pre-HubSpot, is you felt pretty bad about your own performance, but it also sounds like you weren't given the right tools and methods to succeed in the first place. So perhaps it wasn't just your lack of skill, so to speak, but rather you were just sent to play the wrong game or with the wrong equipment. How would you reflect
right.
on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting when you look at, I mean, it's so easy. It's almost like a joke, right? To talk about how like salespeople are awful, right? They're just dishonest. They're trying to take advantage of folks. But it's not that simple, right? When you start digging into it, you find all these different things. Like, yeah, some salespeople are just like trying to take your money, right? But that's not most of them. I think most of them are just like decent people who are trying to make a living, right? And when you start to look at, to your point, and not just the tools they're given, but also like the leaders they have and the cultural expectations in their companies. Something that's really sad and a little discouraging to me in my role is we have at HubSpot Academy the inbound sales certification. It's relevant to any salesperson in any industry, just kind of these best practices for making sales a good experience for both the seller and the buyer. And so often people will get certified and they'll reach out to me on LinkedIn or some other way and be so excited, like, Kyle, I'm going to do things differently now. And then a week later, they'll come back and be like, my boss didn't like that I was trying new things. They told me I have to keep doing it the old way. And I was like, yeah, as a salesperson, you don't necessarily get a lot of say. And so many of these people a month or two later will reach out and be like, I left that company and I got a job at a new company. It's like, cool, I'm happy for you, but I'm sad that your old company is not going to change, right? Like this transformation is slowed down by these sales leaders who think there's only one way to do sales, and it's the way sales has always been done. And whether it's right or wrong doesn't matter. It's just the way we do things. And so to get the sales leaders on board is hard. And then to your point, to get marketing and sales aligned requires buy-in even higher up, right? You need the executives to agree that, yes, we want to offer a seamless experience to our customers beginning to end. We want marketing and sales and customer service all pulling in the same direction and working toward the same goals. That's hard to do. It's legitimately difficult, especially if a company has been around for a while. I think early stage companies are a little more malleable. They can start making adjustments. But if you've been in business 10, 20, 50, 100 years, it's really hard for a frontline salesperson or marketer to be like, hey, I think we could do this differently. And so that's tough.
Right. It is. I can totally imagine. And I think we could spend hours discussing various internal case studies you may have from businesses small, but especially to large, and what kind of arguments every stakeholder needed to get the buy-in. And that's all very complicated. And again, that just proves how sales is so much more than what many people maybe perceive it as. It can be super complicated, difficult. You need to have a large amount of empathy and so many other skills. So it certainly doesn't end with having the tools, but it absolutely, at this point, I believe it's become essential. And I agree that it's sad any time you hear about another company that just refuses to evolve. You could argue it's kind of evolution at work in a way.
It is.
And over time, I fear that those kinds of organizations are just going to have the numbers slap them in the face, right? Because they're not operating in the way that buyers want to be treated, for example, and their competition is. So we see that's a lot. And I've been so blessed to work with various organizations that were open to this change, where there wasn't a long process of friction or anything, where the adoption of HubSpot was welcomed. And most recently, 2 years ago, I was even assigned the role to implement the system for a multi-million-dollar SaaS company, which was so much fun. So good to do, such amazing results. But yeah, that's that's a long story. And I am actually curious to learn a bit more about the technical portion of HubSpot in this call, because this channel that we're recording for, my YouTube channel, is all about productivity, especially tech for productivity. And I even once created a video which started out kind of for fun, to see, can I use HubSpot and turn it into a personal productivity system? So that means task management, project management, referencing. And I was so surprised how far I was able to get. I had pretty low expectations, but it's about kind of reinterpreting some of the features. So a sales pipeline became a project list, and similar. So the video is on my channel. But I am curious, from the technical angle, if you think about some customers that you know about pre and post HubSpot, what kind of tools were they using before, and to fulfill the needs that HubSpot now all fulfills for them in one piece of software? Does anything come to mind?
Yeah. So, I mean, it varies a lot. I'm amazed how many of our customers had no CRM before, right? They're using a spreadsheet and their email, and somehow they're trying to keep track of things, and I think whether you're using spreadsheet and email, or you're using a CRM and a marketing platform and something for your website and something for your email, the problem is not the tools themselves, it's the connections between them, which in so many cases just don't exist. And I think back to my time when I was in customer success at the first tech company I worked at. We had our little homegrown CRM system where I could go in and I could get information about the account. I could see the contact information, the people there. But then I would go over to Gmail and I would send emails, and then I'd pick up my phone and make phone calls, and there was no record of that in the CRM, right? If I wanted to look back on an email conversation I had, it was searching in Gmail and trying to set up folders and filters. And it was just, I actually, while I was at the company, I drew some mock-ups of Gmail would work so much better for me if there's just a way to like group people by their company, and right, it could just like look at their email domain and I could see them all together. And what I didn't realize was like our CRM was not actually a CRM. This CRM stands for customer relationship management, and it wasn't managing the relationship at all, right? It had their contact information. I could see what products they had bought, but our actual relationship was all in my email and in my memory.
So it was
and that's
more
the
like an
case.
address book /
Right.
inventory.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's the case for so many companies. And when
Mm.
I was applying to work at HubSpot, I was applying to work at this support team. And one of the things they said was like, create yourself a free account, test out HubSpot before you come into the interview. When you come into the interview, we're going to ask you questions about HubSpot to see if you can be a support rep, you know? And so I did. It's free to set up, and I connected it to my email.
Mm.
And I was just immediately blown away by the simple functionality of when I send an email from HubSpot, or when I send an email from Gmail, it is recorded in HubSpot. And I can go to the company record and I can see all the emails I sent to the people at HubSpot or whatever company in one spot in chronological order. And it was
So good.
this thing I had always wished for, right? And that was as much as I had imagined. But when I started digging around HubSpot, there's so much more to it, right? You can organize these records in different ways. You can, I mean, at the time in 2015, the functionality was very limited, but fast forward I don't know, 7 years it's been, and now, you know, you can create tasks and you can work through them in an automatic way. You can send emails and make phone calls, and you can set reminders for yourself, and you can set automation to do a lot of work for you. And it just is such a powerful, I mean, the whole idea here is that I've heard, not so much recently, but for a long time, I heard like, salespeople, your job isn't going to exist in 5 years. It's all going to be chatbots and AI. And like, that's not the pattern I'm seeing at all. HubSpot and other companies, our competitors, create these products that help salespeople spend more time on the high value stuff, right? Because what we need from our salespeople, especially in a complicated like B2B sales environment, is that relationship building. We need you salespeople on the phone, talking with your contacts, building that relationship. And we want technology to do all like the note taking and organizational stuff in the background, so you don't have to, right? We want you to focus on the thing that you as a human being bring to your role. And I haven't. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Ironically, what this kind of describes is people were expecting technology to make sales disappear, like sales almost not needed anymore. But ironically, what I've seen is it's empowered sales to a degree where we're able to have actually a lot more sales conversations because we're spending less time doing grunt work, because we're spending less time logging. Well, I don't think you can ever completely avoid logging things into CRM. You can automate a lot, right? There's tools and integrations and emails, like you said, a great example. Calls as well can automatically be registered. So all that time that's freed up can now be spent speaking to customers, and those customers or leads, we thought, and maybe this is kind of part of the inbound paradigm to a degree, it can lead to people thinking, I just need to make sure I answer every single question that a potential lead may have via content. I produce it, people find it, they read it, they're informed, and they can make an informed buying decision. I don't need sales once I've achieved that point. But what I saw, especially with my last client who I was with for over 2 years, they're one of the best in the content marketing game, and they answer so many questions so well in the knowledge base. And yet people still come. They still come with questions. They still want to talk to you. And I had an interview with one of them recently, a few months ago, for buyer persona creation and updating it. And what he said really stood out to me is, well, Kinsta, that's the name of the client. It's no secret. Actually, I can just say the name. Has a massive knowledge base, but I just don't really have time to read all of it. So you can have all the advanced technology on the marketing end to capture, nurture leads, etc. But sometimes people still just want to talk to other people and, like you said, build a relationship. So to me, it's so powerful how technology empowers that rather than limits it.
Right. And I think it's so important for salespeople and customer support people and marketers and all the customer facing employees to understand different customers will have different preferences, right? You will have people who will read all the content on your website and they will only talk to sales when they absolutely have to, and they'll know exactly what they want and just show me where to sign. And then there are other people who won't read a thing and just want you to answer their questions and tell them things. And being able to equally serve both people, I think is really important. And it just, I don't know, to be able to understand your customers in that way and help them in the way they want to be helped is the opportunity that salespeople have. Whereas previously, that wasn't it, right. Like if you were in sales 10 or 20 years ago, your customers didn't know anything because you didn't have a website, you didn't have anything, right? And so you had all the content, and your job as a salesperson was to tell them everything, right?
You were the gatekeeper.
Yeah. And now that's not the case, right? Like and so many salespeople don't realize it's not the case. I'm actually in a situation right now. One of the things I have to do at HubSpot Academy is write exams, right? We do these certification courses. People take these multiple choice exams to get certified. I've been trying to get some training so I can be a better exam writer. I know there's science out there about how to write good exams. So I've been looking around at different training companies that have courses on how to, or workshops on how to write exams. And I found one I thought was really good. And so I filled out their form, like contact sales. And in response, I got this sort of a little bit personalized PowerPoint presentation emailed to me explaining what their company is and why I should buy from them. And like, I came to you, right? I know what your company does. I have said I want to buy from you. Can you just tell me how much it costs and where I put in the credit card information, right? But they have this mindset of the old school salesperson of, oh, this poor customer doesn't know a thing. Let us explain to you why we are the best. And they're not listening to me at all, right? And so
it's frustrating. Yes, it's frustrating
really
from both ends, especially because you have this vast knowledge now and experience even from the sales side, and now so from that angle you understand how that's not to go about it, and now you're experiencing it from the buyer side as well.
Yeah.
So maybe it hits you from two directions. Even I can imagine how that's quite frustrating, and it's still sad to see even sometimes companies that have the most advanced technology, the most advanced marketing and sales stack, where they capture leads at a certain buyer stage. You could argue you were in the decision phase of your buyer's journey with this company, but they treated you like you were in the awareness stage, perhaps, right? And it's so important to have alignments internally. Perhaps this is an example where their marketing team built it all up, recognizing these different stages and wanting you to come in as a sales qualified lead, etc., in the decision stage. But then the sales team perhaps isn't on speaking terms with the marketing team. That's not uncommon either. So they just feel like, oh yeah, that's just a marketing gimmick. We'll just put them through our old school process either way, because that's how to do it, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I feel that.
I filled out a form on their website, and who knows where it went, if the marketing team got it or the sales team got it, but somebody was like, oh, here's this Kyle guy, here's his email at HubSpot.com. Okay, like we'll put a HubSpot logo on our standard deck and email it to him. That's probably what he wants. And like, no, that's not what I want. I want to pay you money. Will you let me do that? And so I don't know.
Okay, well, enough about how not to do it. I think we also have a lot of examples of how we can actually empower salespeople and even other HubSpot users, because I think sales is not the only use case for HubSpot, of course. Sure. However, it is the one that we both have a background in, so it's okay if we focus in on that. So as a sales manager, I also really try to coach my reps to really make use of HubSpot's powerful features in terms of productivity enhancement. So what is one of my favorites, for example, is the task queue feature.
Yeah.
It's so powerful to be able to create separate queues based on different categories that you can decide for yourself. And I was leading an international, globally distributed sales team for that matter. And a few of them were dealing with leads from all across the world, meaning different time zones. And so they were based in the Philippines, for example, which means if a North American lead comes in, it's the evening for them and the morning for you in the Philippines. Whereas if they're from Europe, it's the other way around. So what we did is kind of devise this workflow. Well, not just one, actually, it doesn't. But a whole system to recognize where are leads coming from, obviously what's their stage as well. And then to have the rep categorize the task related to that contact based on their time zone in relation to their own. meaning they would do North American contacts in their morning because that's where
Yeah.
they have the highest chance of a live interaction, so to speak. And to
Yeah.
me, that's just one example of how HubSpot has some features that can enhance your productivity. It's just one example, though. And as we also discussed pre-interview, I'm very curious whether you have anything to show and tell, kind of what are some of your favorite productivity enhancing features, perhaps automations or anything really.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me just, I'll start sharing my screen here. Are you seeing HubSpot?
Yes.
Here? Okay. So this is, I just pulled up the tasks page because you were talking about tasks, and just so people can see what it looks like. Your tasks go here, and you can create these tabs. And like you said, you can organize them however you want. And here are all tasks, right? If I want to just work through all 46 of my tasks, I can hit the start button here. Or if I just want to look at my overdue ones or the ones in UK, however I've organized them, I can come here and click start tasks. Some little sneak peek for you. I don't have access to this yet, but we are right now rolling out the ability to add a column on the task page for time zone, which you were just talking about. Oh. So then you could order them by time zone. You could filter them by time zone. Now that has not hit my account yet, but we are rolling that out right now. I would say by the end of February, all HubSpot users will have that, which will be awesome. Right now, the process is you have to organize your contacts or companies or whatever record and then create tasks for them. But we're making that better.
That's so cool. We used to do that by actually having a workflow populate the title of the task with the IP country and region, and then searching for that manually to group it in there.
Yeah, that's clever. That's a great solution.
Yeah.
But that's
this is
just one less workflow you're going to need.
Yes. Very nice.
So that's great. I really love the sequences tool. So sequences, when we first launched it, it was basically just an email automation tool. So the idea was you can take up to, push the wrong button. You can take up to 5 of your email templates, and you can put them in this sequence, and you can say, right, like I want to send an email. I'm going to send, this template. And then 2 days later, I'm going to send another one, and it's going to be this email, right? You can say, wait 2 days or however many days. And these will just keep going until the person responds or you run out, right? We cap it at 5. And that is fine. That's okay. That it works really well, especially if you're like trying to book a meeting. So HubSpot also has a meeting scheduling tool, and you can put your meeting links in these templates. And because it's one connected system, if they book a meeting, even if they don't reply, that'll terminate the sequence. So that's cool. But a year or two ago, we changed this. We reimagined the way sequences work, and we've really leaned into sequences as sort of a task automation system. So instead of just emails automatically firing off, which is the kind of the danger with that is if I set up a sequence that is, it takes 3 weeks to get through, I set all those emails up. Who knows what's going to change in those 3 weeks, right? If I have a phone call conversation with this person, or if I learn a new thing about their company, or if I get in contact with someone in their network, it would be really great if I could put that into those emails, but they're already scheduled, they're already set up. So what we do now is we highly recommend that you use tasks. And right, you could still select an email template, right? We could send these same emails, but now they're tasks. And what's going to happen is if we set these up, right, we can do emails, we can do phone calls. I'll just do a couple of emails. I'll use the exact same templates I used before. What's going to happen now is instead of this one automatically sending in 2 days, what's going to happen is in one of my task queues, you could choose which one, you're going to get a task to send this email. And the template is still populating this, right? I don't have to write this email from scratch, but now I'm going to, as a human being, think, okay, I'm going to send this email, but I remember I just had a phone call conversation with this person. I'm going to edit this email to add a couple of notes before I send it to show that, I remember what we talked about on the phone. So now what we're doing is the system is still automated. It's still taking all that administrative work of remembering when to follow up with people. It's taking it off your shoulders. And you as a sales rep can just focus on making this content as relevant and personalized as possible. And so whether that's an email or a phone call or what have you, that is much better, right? The effort it takes for you to dig into your records and see when's the last time I reached out to Lucas, or when's the last time I talked on the phone to this company. That's not very valuable for you or that company. For this system to take care of that automatically and keep you on a cadence, but to keep the onus on you of clicking send so that you can approve all of these messages before they go out, that makes you more like, it feels more like you're in the captain's chair, right? You are controlling where the ship is going, but it's a lot less effort for you to do that. And so this is the kind of way HubSpot is starting to think about sales. We want, and I think you even said this earlier, we want people, we want the sales rep to be empowered. We don't want them in any way to be offloading their thinking and their relationship management to an automated system. We just want to take care of all the boring, distracting administrative work that computers, frankly, are better at than humans are, and let you focus on the human aspects of sales, which is building relationships, understanding people's needs, and communicating value to them. So
that's amazing.
I think this is sort of a subtle change. I don't know how many people have picked up on it, but I think it's so valuable.
I actually didn't pick up on it. So this is certainly for, I think, many sales teams, very powerful. When I was a sales manager, I definitely also recommended, in fact, coached the reps to deploy these sequences. However, also with the warning that once it's up, once it's live. And
Yeah.
yes, there are two reasons it may automatically end, right? Like you said, response to an email or a book meeting. But there are various cases where it doesn't pick up on either of those events. Perhaps
Right.
the email from your sequence was forwarded to a different contact, and they're the one who actually booked the meeting. That's right.
Right.
So it's a
Yeah.
different contact record. So there are so many scenarios where it's helpful to yes, to pre-plan the sequence, but not have it just automatically deployed, because if anything happens, and it often does, that makes it appear irrelevant or untimely or whatever else, then it just looks kind of mindless.
Right.
If you look at the CRM records as a seller too, you feel kind of ashamed almost.
Yes.
So
Sorry.
yeah,
And
exactly. I've seen this happen.
yeah, and I
I've had
mean,
it happen to me.
for sure. Yeah. And when you as a salesperson, if you're making phone calls and someone who never answers the phone finally answered the phone, or if you're lucky enough to bump into someone at an event or something, you don't want to have to carry the intellectual burden of remembering, like, oh, when I get back to my office, or when I get back to my desk, I have to turn off that sequence, or else I'm going to accidentally email them tomorrow, right? Or even just remember, like, did I have them in a sequence? I don't know, right? Whereas this way, where it's all task management, the email comes up, and the cool thing, I didn't show this, but when you're working through a task queue, HubSpot takes you from record to record, right? You are now on the contact or company record. There you are. And here's the email you're supposed to send, or the phone call conversation you're supposed to have. And you can see there on the contact record, oh, wait, oh, yeah, I just talked to this person on Tuesday. I'm not going to send this email, right? I'm going to send a different one. And so that is just one less thing for you to have to remember, right? And this is a great litmus test for any productivity tool you use, whether you're in sales or any other industry, whether it's HubSpot or any other provider. Does it reduce your mental burden, or does it give you more things you have to keep track of and check on, right?
Exactly.
Because
exactly.
You may be getting more stuff done, but if you have to remember all the steps and make sure you're not crossing your wires, then eventually you're just going to get exhausted, right? And that added productivity is going to be lost.
Exactly. And I just thought of another reason why this change is so powerful from a productivity angle. See, I am a big believer, and I also teach this to my clients, in grouping all your work by context. That's the official term for it. But what that means, you kind of take similar tasks and bundle them into one. For example, every call, but you could get more granular, every outbound call, every demo, whatever categorization you apply to it. What you could also say is, salespeople can now have a writing context where perhaps every Monday from 8 to 12, they spend a couple of hours writing out the sequences they want to send for the coming week, pre-produce them, in other words, just like before. without the risk of what you said, having it deployed and then not looking at it anymore with all
Right.
the risks associated with that. So it sounds like it's really the best of both worlds, especially for salespeople or others in a function where they communicate with leads and customers. So that's
Yeah.
just something I wanted to throw in there from the geeky productivity angle, so to speak.
Yeah, and I think that's so smart. I mean, anything you can do. HubSpot has email scheduling, but that's nothing special really anymore, right? Like even in Gmail,
Sure.
you can schedule emails. Or
Yeah.
I can even schedule the text messages I send, right? And like this is just such a great way to think about productivity. Let's write our text messages or emails or whatever on like a Monday morning or a Friday afternoon or whenever it is that you don't feel like you're going to have a lot of luck actually talking to people. But let's schedule them.
Yep.
For a moment that they'll actually drive impact, right? Like you can send texts or emails in the middle of the night if you want, if you're into that, but like the results of that are not going to be great. It would be much better for those messages to reach people at a time when you think they'll actually see them and be able to respond to them. And so any sort of tools you can use to like do work when it's convenient for you and have its impact hit when it's more convenient or relevant to the person you're trying to reach is huge.
Yeah, I agree. So this is all an example of automation, or maybe semi-automation, because you still have to initiate it manually as a user, as a HubSpot user.
Yeah.
However, there's also a thing called workflows, which are automations that are based on rules. So they are event-based, for example, or condition-based, and they can fire up based on those conditions without an individual rep having to manually intervene. Is there anything on the workflow side that you think is worth sharing here?
Yeah. All right, let's go back to deals here. So now that you can see HubSpot, you're seeing HubSpot, right?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Let me say that all again. It'll make much more sense when you can see what I'm talking about. So this is deals. In most CRM platforms, your sales in progress are called opportunities. In HubSpot, we call them deals. And we have them in this drag and drop layout. So we have these columns representing the different stages of your sales process. You can customize them to have as many or as few as you need and call them whatever you want. And as a deal progresses, right, once I've sent the contract to this person, I move their deal to the contract sent column. And this is how you keep track of it. And so the workflows engine you were talking about, or the workflows tool is our automation engine where you can automate pretty much anything inside of HubSpot. But what we started doing is taking little pieces of it and embedding it in different parts of the platform. So if we want to edit this deal pipeline we're seeing right here, I'll just go to my settings icon real quick. And we can see here the stages of my deal pipeline. But there's this automate tab. And so what we can do here is for different stages of this sales process, we can add little bits of automation. So when a deal gets moved into whatever stage, we can make things happen. And apparently I've demoed this before in this portal. So one very simple thing is you can create a task, right? And so this is a great way to think about automation. I think it's really tempting when we talk about automation for it to just be a wide open, sky's the limit sort of thing. Like, ooh, could I automate this? Ooh, could I automate that? And it just seems like fun to automate things. But I think it's much more strategic to think, okay, at this point in the sales process, what do I need to happen? And what would it be helpful if I didn't have to have the sales rep do it, right? And so maybe if at a certain point in your sales process, a sales engineer needs to get looped in, you could create a workflow that assigns a task to the sales engineer. Hey, you need to join this, or maybe we could rotate the lead to a new owner, or whatever the case is. If you just think about at this stage of the process, we need a thing to happen. We can add actions and the workflows. What we've done is boiled this down to very simple things. So maybe just create tasks, maybe just send an internal email notification, right? Like, hey, sales engineer, I need you. But there are actually lots of different things you can do with workflows. You could send an email, you could rotate record to owner, right? And so something that I think is really cool, if we want to stick with the sales engineer, is in HubSpot, every record has an owner. The deal has a deal owner and you just put a user in there, but you can create custom owner properties. So you can have like the deal owner, which would be the sales rep who owns the deal. And then you could have another owner property called sales engineer. And when a deal gets to a particular deal stage, if you have multiple sales engineers, you could just use this rotate to record. And you could choose, I don't know if I have I don't have a custom deal owner property here, but you could have like a sales engineer property here, and you could rotate it to your sales engineer team, right? Maybe that's team B. And then automatically, without any administrative work from anyone, when a deal reaches a certain stage, a sales engineer is going to get assigned, right? And a task could be assigned to them to let them know. And maybe an email could be sent to the contacts involved in this deal, introducing them to, hey, here's your new sales engineer. And all of that would happen without the sales rep having to do anything manually, right? And that is great.
Big. That's a great example. And it looks so small, right? It looks so detailed.
Yeah.
But if you're in sales, then you know that if you are working dozens of deals, hundreds, maybe even at the same time, and they're all moving to separate stages, it is a pain to manually communicate things like this, where there's certainty involved, right? Perhaps people can miss your request for help, because I can totally imagine, I've seen this happen, where a sales rep goes to the Slack group of the business and or the sales team channel even, but hey, can the sales engineer please hop in here? And of course, we're all doing our best, but there's a risk that it gets missed in the flood of messages, right? Whereas here, it puts a clearly visible sign, I suppose, for everybody to see, to also get some accountability right away, due to that contact assignment. Sorry, the HubSpot owner being assigned at random within this team. Yeah, it's big. It's big. It just means a sales rep can just go on with their day, move on to the next deal, whilst the sales engineer also gets the queue they need to deliver their part of the, contribute their part of the job, and give the customer a good experience as a result, a faster experience, a more smooth experience, reducing internal friction. So it's a great example. But probably if you count them all, there are probably millions of workflows out there. If you count all of the workflows together from all the users you have on your platform now, I think you probably have like 10 or even hundreds of thousands of customers at this point.
Yeah.
So who knows what kind of gems there are out there. And I recall you posted something on LinkedIn very recently, I think it was even today, where you said something about user reported deal automation that you weren't aware of.
Right.
Because that's the thing, right? It's a sandbox.
Right. Well, and here's the thing, like if I had to, there are lots of CRM platforms out there. Lots of them are very good. Some of them even have better functionality than HubSpot. I'm unapologetic about that. But the thing that I think makes HubSpot really special is the way we've built it. Kind of the standard way to build a CRM platform is through mergers and acquisitions, right? Like you build one piece of it, and then you buy a company who has another piece, and you start cobbling it together. HubSpot, we've built everything in-house from the ground up. And so what you get is all of the functionality works everywhere, right? If you want to, rotate leads as part of your deals, that works exactly the same as if you just built a workflow somewhere else, right? And we have a quoting tool built into HubSpot. And as part of that, if you want quotes to have to be approved, right, by a manager, especially if they're above a certain size, or if it's from a rep who is brand new, you can create workflows that do that. And the functionality is exactly the same. And basically anything in HubSpot can trigger automation in any other part of HubSpot. And that's awesome. And the thing you were talking about today, I talked to a couple of users in the past few weeks who have come up with this solution where I showed you the deal board. You move deals from column to column. You can make it so when a deal moves into a column, there's a little pop-up and certain properties have to be filled in, and the sales rep can't move the deal to that stage until they've been filled in. But those are deal properties. And what these very clever users have done is, like, sometimes we want information on the contact. Sometimes we want information on the company before the deal moves to that stage. And so what they do is they create a little checkbox property on the deal that a workflow can check, right? Like, are these contact properties filled in? Are these company properties filled in, right? Do we know the industry? Do we know the size? Do we have a champion? Do we have whatever your requirements are? And then when they are met, as soon as they're met, the workflow automatically checks that box. And that's one thing the rep doesn't have to do. And the thing I was posting about on LinkedIn is, if you want to take it even a step further, you can make that little checkbox property uneditable by sales reps, right? It can only be edited by a workflow. So this way, sales reps don't have to think about it. But if they get to that point and it's unchecked, like, oh, well, now, all right, I better figure out, what industry they're in, or what their annual revenue is, or whatever the requirement is, And so this is just one area where because everything in HubSpot works together, you can invent stuff like this, right? I don't think we built the ability to make properties uneditable with this use case in mind, but it works, right? You can trigger workflows and make them do this stuff because everything in HubSpot is connected to everything else. We've crafted it to all be a unified platform, and that really opens up a lot of opportunities.
Right, and even though it's at this point closed source and, like you said, a unified platform, it's still so flexible, and that's what continues to surprise me. How this example you just gave, where even you're surprised at HubSpot's capabilities sometimes, based on clever users figuring out new ways to use the product to get more productive, to get to reduce friction if you're collaborating within or even between teams, and in the end generate more revenue in a sustainable way, because in the end that is the majority of the HubSpot users are in any capacity in a kind of growth role, I believe, right? It's sales, marketing, customer support, probably at times as well. How would you describe the ideal HubSpot customer? So in other words, if anybody's watching this and they're thinking, should I use this or not, who would this be all be a good fit for?
Yeah. So, I mean, at the company level, HubSpot's big ambition, our mission statement is to help millions of organizations grow better. And we've got a long way to go before we get there, right? I think about a year ago, we hit our 100,000 customer mark, but to get to millions is going to take us a while. But to help millions of organizations grow better, that's our passion, right? Like the biggest companies in the world, we are not interested in having Apple or Tesla or Amazon or IBM or Ford Motor Company or Boeing. Like, we don't want them for our customers, right? Like, they can just go on being the biggest companies in the world and we don't care. What we really want to do is find those small, ambitious companies that want to beat the big guys, right? And we want to help them do it. And so that's where our passion is. And so if you are a small or mid-sized company, right, and you want to grow, if growth is your ambition, we are here for it. That is what we want to do. And I mean, if you're a small company, like my very first job, I worked at a little office supply store. It was just a husband-wife duo running this thing. It was like 5 employees. They weren't interested in growth, right? They just enjoyed selling office supplies, and I had fun working for them. If you're in that situation, like, HubSpot won't do you any harm, right? You could get the free version and start using it. But where our passion really is for companies like that who want to grow, who want to take out Staples, right? Who want to become the next big thing. And so if your company's ambition is growth, HubSpot's a good fit for your company. As far as individuals, HubSpot started as a marketing platform. If you're in marketing, we have world-class tools that you could absolutely benefit from. If you're in sales, we have built our CRM with the sales rep in mind. So many CRMs are built so like sales leadership can get reports, and what they find is the sales reps don't use the CRM because it's terrible. And we have wanted to make a CRM that is easy to use and actually gives value to the sales rep, right? Takes all the mindless work of logging things and tracking things and takes care of that for them so they can focus on the selling part. So if you're a sales rep, I expect you will find HubSpot to be a breath of fresh air, especially if you've been spending time in some other CRM system. For sales managers, we've recently been investing a lot in sales management tools. We've created a forecasting dashboard where you can see your individual reps, how they're performing against their quota, and you can coach them individually to help them, decide on next steps for their individual deals and make a plan. We've also introduced this conversation intelligence tool. So if you're making phone calls from inside HubSpot, or if you're using our integration with Zoom, then we give you a breakdown of what percentage of this time does this rep spend talking on their calls, and what percentage of time does the other person talk? And you can search the transcript and find where are they asking questions, where are they making mistakes, and you can leave comments and coach them to help them be better at their sales. As a manager, of course, we have reporting, we have the things you want, but if you're really interested in coaching your reps, I think you'll find HubSpot is a really enjoyable platform for that. And then customer support, we have Service Hub, ticketing system, and conversations and feedback surveys, and all the things that service teams need to perform better. And our real goal is to get those three teams, marketing, sales, and customer service, working in a seamless, unified way, so that your customers, right? Like if marketing and sales are tripping over each other, you're going to lose customers, right? Whether you're getting double hit by marketing emails and sales phone calls, or you're getting totally ignored, that's going to be bad. And if the handoff from sales to customer service is clumsy, you're going to lose customers there too, right? And we want to smooth that whole thing out, so that your customers, when they become your customers, that they've been through the marketing process and the sales process, and now they're customers, will just be so delighted and happy that they'll tell all their friends. They'll post positive reviews on the internet. They'll say, hey, everyone, come do business with this company. And then they become an extension of your marketing and sales teams, right? Your customers are out there advocating for you, and you just get this virtuous cycle of growth. And that's how HubSpot intends to help small companies grow better.
Yeah, well, I'm certainly one of those customers who's become an evangelist, because everything you've said, I've just been nodding along and smiling. For one, because of your relentless enthusiasm, which I also highly recommend anybody to follow you on LinkedIn. I believe that's where you share a lot of these micro stories, like the one we discussed earlier in this call. But also because I experience all of this very, very directly from multiple angles as a sales rep, as a business owner. I use it for my own consulting business, of which this YouTube channel is a part of, and also from a marketing angle. So, and that's not even all of them, right? At the same time, for those who may be thinking this sounds a bit overwhelming, you don't have to go all in right away.
Right.
There is a free version, and you can also purchase a specific compartment of the tool for more features in that area. So you have the Sales Hub, you mentioned the Customer Support Hub, so you can get those separate subscriptions that don't break the bank for a small startup. And if you're ready, obviously you can upgrade all the way into Enterprise, I believe is the highest grade, right?
Yep. Yeah. And
Cool.
so I think that's very wise. HubSpot, it is a little bit overwhelming. You mentioned my LinkedIn channel. I started posting things on LinkedIn on a regular basis because there were new features coming out in HubSpot so rapidly that nobody could keep on top of them, right? And I have stuff every week to say about what's new in HubSpot, and it can be very overwhelming, but you can just start free. You can start with just the CRM piece, or just the marketing piece, or just whatever piece you need right now. And then we'll grow with you, right? And so I think that's definitely, start small. Don't feel like you have to eat the whole elephant, or whatever the metaphor is.
Yeah, that works. That metaphor works well. So is there anything else before we run out of time, Kyle, that you would want to highlight about HubSpot, or anything else you would want to share with an audience that is really into productivity?
As far as HubSpot, I mean, I got to make a plug for HubSpot Academy. Again, if you're new to HubSpot, or if you've been using HubSpot for a while and you don't feel like you're getting the value you need out of it, check out HubSpot Academy. We've got hundreds of training videos on all kinds of different topics. Whatever you're stuck with, hopefully we can help you get unstuck. And then as far as productivity goes, I don't know. I think just there's a lot of figuring out what works best for you, but I think there are also just like best practices that work for everybody. And I think we should all keep an eye on the way technology is changing, and make sure that the stuff we're automating and offloading to technology are the right things, right? Lean into your human relationships, both at work and at home and wherever else, and make sure you're investing your energy and your emotions into the things that count. And if there are things that stress you out, if there are things that distract you, that's the stuff you need to figure out how to automate or just stop doing altogether. And I think just figuring out, what you value most in life, and making that the thing you do the most with your time. That's for me what productivity looks like.
Sure. Well, there's no way I can top that. So I think this is a great way to to finish the conversation with that note, which I think is so true. And people in the productivity sphere, geeks like myself, our weakness is that sometimes we get too obsessed with the technology and what it can do rather than actually getting things done. If that makes sense. So this is a very good point. And I feel like in general, the productivity enhancements that HubSpot makes are more implied rather than very explicit. But I think as this conversation and some of the things you've shown can really demonstrate, it's is powerful in so many ways for growing your business, but through the academy also growing as an individual with new skills that are completely tool agnostic, right? You have an inbound sales course on there, and many others that are just about developing new skills. And it's where we'll also see you in action, of course, as a presenter of many of those videos there. So highly recommended it. I have a lot of those certifications myself. I refresh them every couple when I get a notification that it's expired.
That's great.
And then I see a completely new course again. So you do a lot of work for that, and it's great. I'm so happy that you found what sounds like your dream job, right? Including the title, right? Your title is senior.
Right, I know,
professor.
Right? How lucky can you get?
Yeah, that's so awesome. Is there anything that people can, let me phrase it differently. What can people reach out to you for, and where can they find you?
So I'm very active on LinkedIn. If you send me a connect request or message, I pretty much will always accept it. Especially if you tell me that you saw me here on this YouTube video, that will help me at least have context into why you're reaching out. But I love LinkedIn, and feel free to send me any questions, especially about HubSpot, obviously, but just in about sales in general. If you are a salesperson or a sales manager and you're struggling to figure out how to make the pieces fit together and get it to work better, whether you're in HubSpot or some other system or no system at all, like I love those kinds of conversations.
Yeah, so do I, and I love this conversation, Kyle. So thank you so much for giving me this hour. It felt like 10 minutes, and I could easily continue for 5 more hours, but I'm sure you have other meetings to attend and other commitments to attend to. So thank you so much for joining us here today.
Yeah, thank you.